Good morning, all. We're live. Let me switch over here. I left my I left my um hmm, something on my shirt. I don't know. Nope. I think it's baked in there. I don't know. Bad in the wash. Left my glasses in the baby's room again. You'll notice that the here. I'm gonna bring down this music. Whoa. All right. Uh, good morning. It's Saturday, and oh yeah, I've got to bring up the chat. I don't ever really expect anybody to be here, but I did get some music. This is Night Journey ambient music. I'm curious if it gets a copyright um, pickup because it's on archive.org. I can't see the attribution information. I'm gonna, but okay. So sorry. I did some fiddling with OpenIPC last night, and I'm going to try and get it to a card and booting. And otherwise, I don't know, I might actually stay a little quiet because some of this is just going to be figuring it out, and I'm just bringing you all along. I also may be able to get the other camera working. In the meantime, I'm going to bring up the chat here real quick and here, because if I set this window, it should set it in the other. So here, I'll do the music. Yeah, sorry if I don't. I, it's early. I don't know. Anybody watch Farscape? One of the things I enjoyed about Farscape was that it was in part about the journey of, the hero Crichton in this foreign environment, and he had to adapt. And so one of the things that I enjoyed throughout the arc of the series was watching him adapt to this foreign environment. I mean, he was an astronaut, but he got thrown into a completely different place. Uh, and, I mean, I am an engineer, but I'm trying to go into places that maybe I haven't been before. All right. So I need to bring the chat up in here. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. I'm going to bring up to like half gain. This is, I'm definitely going to have to figure out what it is like in the mix. And then I have a separate control on my headset, on this Razer headset here. I have a second volume control. All right, let's take down the browser. I may not talk through things as much. I am a little bit tired. But this is, yep, I'm going to get some coffee, enjoy ambient night music here. I don't know, maybe the ambient night music is going to get eaten up by the compression codec. so one of the first things I wanted to do was I'm going to pull this music to a different tab just so I can control it as needed. Never heard it before, so we're just going to see what happens. The next thing is we're going to be doing a little bit of research and a little bit of refresher. So I did this build. And one of the things about this build that I did was I took out Majestic. Majestic is the webcam. So here, we'll just take you through my history. It's not in this folder. Okay, we're in this firmware output. This is even the right one. I was working on my laptop, but over Tmux. This is the correct one. The first thing I'm going to do, because I need to look up some of the documentation that I've posted before. So, because I need to figure out, I believe these are basically my options, right? So I have a Squash FS, CPIO, which if you do a bin walk on that, CPIO. Oh, well, that's a lot different than the one that I thought it was. Before, it just gave me like a file system. Interesting. Okay. Let's do a bin walk. Sorry, we're going through the outputs. Here's our image. Just gonna go up from here. Yes. Okay. And mark. And mark. Oh, by the way, I'm also recording this on OBS. I don't know if that's maybe what you're supposed to do in the first place. You're recording your local recording as you are simultaneously streaming. Oh heck, maybe at that point I could like stop streaming and continue recording. Don't get off into a tangent. Normally in this directory you would have so normally in this directory, I'll give you an example. No, I'm doing the same thing. I'm getting off track. I'm just going to tell you. If you were to check out the OpenIPC project, there would be a bunch of these different kind of chip configuration directories. And each one of them generally is for a different manufacturer, like Texas Instruments, etc., or Ingenic. I've got to be able to show this. So this is all the configuration. files. Oh man, it's too big. I'm going to do it to... It's not always that big. I'm not quite sure why it's not coming out of... We're back. Okay, yes. Okay, so the different board configurations, kernel configurations, extra files that go into it, etc. This is a lot of the hard work that's been done by the OpenIPC team. Including some kernel patches, and I'm really kind of curious what kind of kernel patches they have in there, because Xburst is a target in vanilla, the vanilla OpenIPC. I gotta keep going. Okay, so, and then basically, and I'm even hesitant. Oh no, I snapshotted. Okay, so now when I do this build, it just has these different Ngenic processors, right? So all it does is read all the build bash file does. See, I'm getting myself off into talking again. All it does is read recursively. So that's it. I'm gonna say. Okay, I'm gonna go to here, and I'm gonna go into configs. Okay, so normally you might do like a make menu config, but you can also specify your def config, because that's all really the menu config is doing for you. So if I go to T31 light def config, we have all of these different options. And I'm taking these mostly with the defaults. But if we keep going down, I said no to majestic and majestic fonts. That, I think, is about the only thing that I changed. I do want to get a... Okay. So, these are the overlay and what kind of file systems to output. Now, if I bring this up, basically I need to know how to flash this. I need to know how to flash my system. I think I'm going to end up doing something similar to what I did yesterday, but it's going to be, I'd like to use DD, or, I just wanted to get to boot, but I want to try this out because I want it to work on the SD card. I just don't want to do, I want to do a little primer, and remind myself even what CPIO means. I knew it was copy in and out, but I didn't know is if it's something that is... Oh, I think it's just like tar. In fact, I think it came before tar. Yeah. Oh. Into or out of a CPIO or tar archive. Okay. I also have a squash FS. And for you that would like to remember, squash FS it's a compressed read-only file system. And this is generally what is used on embedded read-only file systems, as well as you know, your live CDs, that kind of thing. So one of my questions is then... Oh, I'm sorry. So then I made with that def config. So it's already kind of all sorted out. And apparently has some cool patches and things like that. And there's also information about the board, which I do believe that the board has more to do with the configurations for things like U-boot. But, okay, so then when it's all said and done, and it does take a while, you should get some output. And this is the output that I received. This is similar to the output. No. This is similar to the output from the one provided by broke down. Right? We have a U image. We have a rootfs.tar. I have no idea what build parameters, but you know what we used on this was to we decompressed the file system, the tar, into ext3. So I think that's what I want to try, but I know the squash thing. Sometimes there's parameters that make that rootfs. I don't know if it's going to work or not. So let's just try it. Sorry I didn't show you the terminal. Where's the browser? Where's the terminal? Let's just try it. We're going to get a new SD card out of my handy dandy SD card holder. Pick an SD card, any SD card. This one's about the same as the other one. It'd be really nice if they were a little bit different. Aha! This one's only 2 gigabytes. I'm going to try and use this one. Hey, good morning, Captain Ron. You haven't missed anything yet. You haven't missed anything yet. The real question of the morning is if my ambient music mix, which will probably put you right back to sleep, or to sleep, depending on where you are in your cycle. If it's too high, or if you can't even note, if you aren't even able to notice it. Right now, it's just just ambient nighttime music, actually. But what you missed, I guess, is that last night I was able to do an OpenIPC build. I excluded Majestic, and I'm going to see if I can do this myself. Okay, why isn't my SD card fitting? There we go. I guess. Yeah. Well, and if I recall, you're in Florida, and those crickets, well, those crickets are everywhere. I like nighttime bug sounds. We're going to find out. Here, I didn't put my some sort of light. We're going to find out. Here's my SD card. It's 2 gigabytes. We're going to find out why I decided to put this little piece of black tape on it. I mean, oh, it's a write only. I guess I was trying to enforce that write only thing. I am sure that at this point it is okay to use. So here we go. You're correct. I think that's what it was. Okay, well, having Captain run along for the ride, it's fantastic. We're going to see if I can write this new build out to the card. Nothing super interesting, and I'll be honest, I don't know how much I'm even going to talk because I'm pretty off. So, step 1. The message. Out. SDB1. We're gonna have to delete. We're gonna have to delete the contents there of SDB1. Yeah, it's my understanding is that Majestic is the only closed source thing. And I mean, you know, it is also large. And I'm going to be super honest. It was giving me like a 404 or a 302 or something like that in trying to do the automatic download and build. So it was problematic for me last night. And I said, oh, well, I don't really need that piece anyway. So let's go ahead and take the time to figure out how to change the configuration so that I can include or exclude different packages. And so I've figured out how to do that, which is very easy, but you know, it's like I just had to look. So I'm going to unmount this whatever's on dev SDB1. I'm going to do an ls bulk grep SDB. Yes, 2 gigabytes. I'm going to do an fdisk, 1 dev SDB. Well, I 100% agree that we should be able to find a open source RSTP daemon. I mean, like, I think it might also be part of that camera, you know, I think Majestic might also be part of the camera pipeline or whatever the tools. But I haven't dove into it too much. I know you and Broke Down have been trying to figure out the camera, the sensor part. In fact, Captain Ron, little sidetrack here. Captain Ron is coming up with a board for a sensor board for Teacup. I'm going to stay on track, but while I get some more coffee, that's my Discord. Yeah, that's what I want. I want the Discord. Question is where my Discord window actually is. Alright, and if we go into electronics, there we go, look at that. That's what Captain Ron's been working on. Well, one of the things. I'm gonna get my coffee, I'll be right back. Seeing that you were doing that, Captain Ron, building a sensor board, got me super duper excited. So that has, I'm just going to relay it. That has two FFC connectors, one for the standard 24 pin and one for the 15 pin PiCam. And yeah, so I think we're all in agreement. We technically have like a voting process, but I think we're all in agreement that for Rev B of the board, that we're going to go for 24 pin MIPI connector and ditch the PiCam one, which I think is appropriate because it's like this whole project is trying to take things that are locked into kind of a commercial set of tooling, if you will, and compatibility, and make it more hacker friendly. Yeah, nobody's been able to get the PiCam detected so far. And I mean, you know, I haven't dove into that. I know that y'all did a bit. There feels like there's some black box elements to the PiCam that, and I haven't gotten into it, but I think that would be an interesting deep dive. We just haven't been able to get it to work right. So, and that's okay. This is a prototype dev board. That's right. All right. Sorry, I got myself off track a little bit. I'm gonna close this Discord window and get back to this card. For some reason, it's still wanting to be read-write or read-only. Oh, that's why I did it. It's maybe read-only by default. I'm just going to skip this card for now. There's somebody popped it out. Because it adds just a little bit more space. I'm going to try and pop it back in. And no, I don't like it. I don't like it. I do like the fact that it's only 2 gigabytes because it's not like we're using much. I've got another one. No, that's a really nice 32 gig. I'm going to use this plain Jane 32 gig. But I'm not going to be able to keep track of them. So I'm going to label them. Imagine that. Got myself a writing utensil. And I'm just going to call this B X1. Alright, and the other one doesn't have an X1. I know, right? It's just like an old flappier cassette. That's that's part of the experience that I was going for as we get this going further. You know? Oh yeah, I don't know if I'm taking... sorry, I'm fidgeting with my desk. I wish you could see that. I also really do want a reset button on our device here. I'm gonna disconnect the power from the board. All right, from the teacup. I have set aside that SD card that is successfully booting and running things. And now we're going to look at this again. Looks like I had it originally set up as a Raspberry Pi card. Oops, that's not what I wanted at all. Yep. Mount dev SDB1. Mount SDB2. I saw that. Yep. That pin wasn't broken out. I saw it on the schematic after we passed and was like, oh, maybe we had wanted that. F-disk. SDB. I'm just going to do this the same way I did it before. Should really make this a script. $57 megabytes for the boot is just fine. I'm just going to change the labels of these. And change the partition type. Move 1. I think before we set it, we had the 0B. 195 FAT32. And the other one already is set as Linux. So I think we can just write it. Now I'm going to do an mkfs dot fat or v VFAT. I'll do a VFAT. We didn't do that before. We did a FAT, I think. SDB1. Okay. MKFS. I'm going to go for my gold. I'm going to go for the gold. I'm going to do an MKFS. MKFS.ext3. Dev SDB2. Yep. Yep, I do. I'm going to overwrite it. Here we go. Sorry, it's big. Oh, you know what? That's going to give me time to set up a new share. New share window. I did not connect the Wi-Fi dongle to my teacup. I've had very little time between in the last week, couple weeks. I do have a Target dongle that I believe will work. I'll have to get the specs for it and write them down. And I've got to desolder it. Capital C is the command I'm looking for. We're still writing to the SD card. We're almost there. So this is my Obsidian window, by the way. One of the things I like about it, let's see, yeah, is that I can embed Excelodraw drawings into it. Now I haven't figured out how to get those to publish correctly in the blog, except as an image, because you can copy this and then basically save it out as a PNG or an SVG. Anyway, close these other tabs, and then looks our file system is almost there. It's right in the journal. Close others. All right, our super blocks have been created. SDB2. And that one already exists. That's cool. Mount. Yeah, turn off my auto mount. Alright, so now I'm going to mount dev SDB1 to SDB1 to mount SDB1 and mount dev SDB2 mount SDB2. Alright, so we're switching back over here to the right directory. I'm gonna copy uimage. I'm gonna make it so it follows the directions. Excuse me, I gotta sneeze. Mount SDB1. Oh, I didn't give the ending file name. Move mount SDB1 uimage to mount SDB1 uimage. Just uimage. Thank you. That shouldn't have a profound effect. And then we're going to go for the gold and just see if we can do this with ext3. I don't have high expectations that this is going to work, but we're going to try it out. rootfs tar. Dash C mount SDB2. Okay. All right. That should be it for that part. Umount dev SDB1. Umount dev SDB2. Give it an old sync just to make sure. Now, screen in tmux had some issues yesterday, so I'm not going to do that. Here, I'm going to take this README, put it up in my notes so that I have it. All right. And I'm going to eject the card. I'm going to put it into the teacup. It's, hold on, what I want is set, oh, forgot. I need my bash VI stuff, and I don't have it in this bash RC. I'm gonna have to look it up because I forget things easily. VI in bash. It's super simple. Oh, -O. This is my Atari t-shirt. This is my Atari t-shirt. Some of you may know that like a lot of my first assembly stuff came from an Atari 800. Me learning an Atari 800. By learning, I mean like I just like devoured that thing. I thought it was amazing. So I'm gonna do set -O VI. I also have an Atari hat. you know, and of course it seems like I'm a gamer, like a gamer dad, you know, getting something at Hobby Lobby. I think that's where we got these. They've come out with a line of Atari stuff, and it's like I'd like to figure out how do I tweak it so that it's not just not just an old gamer, I guess. But whatever. I'm a fan. So many of the early Atari things were so cool. Same thing with Commodore. But I just Atari was where I was at. Um, I never really owned a C64, to tell you the truth. But I do have a VIC-20 that I've gotten to work for at least a couple seconds. And one, we'll get back to that. But right now, teacup. In theory, I do this. I do a slash and then screen, and then it's going to bring up the last screen. Oh, I love it. All right, we're going to fire this dude up. I do really like having the flash chip on there, so that it doesn't feel as fast as it. Make sure I don't have any other screens. No? Okay. Are you there? I don't know what I've done to mess up the terminal. Yeah, something's wonky here. I feel like it's in my pin. Make sure everything's connected correctly. It's just not reading all my pins. Or all my keystrokes. I'm going to do it again. This is... Here. I don't know why. I'm going to take out all of it. I'm going to just... I unplugged the TTL adapter. Started happening yesterday. Oh yeah, I'm sure that it will. I'm sure SSH is going to spoil me. This feels like it's working better. Maybe the TTL adapter got a little mad at me yesterday because I was like SSHing into this box and then using tmux, and like I think I may have just made it mad. Yeah, it seems to be working well now. Okay. So this is the flash build. Love having the flash on there, just like when I would have DOS 3 baked into ROM, so that no matter what, when I booted up my machine, I got something. Oh, good. Thanks, Cap. I appreciate that this happened. That these things happen to everybody. I'm going to do a reboot here. Now, I promised I wasn't going to call myself out because I didn't have to, but I will say yesterday, I think after my stream, no, it was right before my stream, I was testing out that code, and I may have like been in the wrong tab or something and then issued power off and just shut down my system. I had to set everything back up. Alright, now we're in the OpenIPC prompt, so we're just going to run through this the same as the README. So I'm just going to be copying and pasting. We're going to do a fat load from UImage. we're going to set these environmental variables. Here we go. Nope. Don't think that it what? Oh yeah, and it rebooted, and now it's going back into the flash. I'm gonna see what it'll be, and then I have to use function page up. It's not working. Oh, it's we're in screen, so it's Control A escape. Should actually be towards. Here we go. Here's the boot. I'm curious what the memory got set at since I built this, but that would be at the Linux boot. We're looking. Well, now that's interesting. That it came up with FAT16 there. Oh, sorry, I went way too far. Here's the fat load. There's me booting. Okay, so this is where we need to pay attention. Is the kernel command line that I expected. I think it's because, let me get back down to the actual panic. Okay, right here. Yep, you're right, not out of sync. I think this is because it's thinking that it's going to get squash. I want to go back up. Oh, what are the ENV ones that I highlighted? That was the interpreted. So we did this on the OS and RM, and then what I highlighted. Sorry, I know I'm skipping around. It was the kernel command line. I was just making sure they. Particularly, I was making sure that the root file system was pointed at the right place, and that see if there was any indication that it was looking for squash or any other kind of file system. Oh, yeah, I don't know if you can read that with the chat there. Not that it's super. They're what we figured they would be. 64 and 64. Yeah, I think it ended up making a squash FS. So I think that's what I need to go back. I was hoping that the fact that the tar was there, that it might just kind of take it. So I am. You know, seeing how things fail is sometimes one of the best teachers. Waiting for root device. This is what I'm going to capture for this run. Oh, you know what would be a nice plugin for OBS is if when I changed focus, it would bring up the window if it was already being shared. I was thinking you could. How do we do that in U-boot? Okay. Well, I do want to see if I can make it work the way that it was configured. It feels like it really shouldn't be that hard. But I would like to get back to that. So these are this is the output that we got, right? Now, would I just write the root fs.squashfs.t31 with dd to the second partition? I wonder. Oh, I think our ambient music stopped. I'm gonna. Yeah. I think this is back to me not really understanding Squash FS. But I think what I want to do, I think I want to see if I can just write it with DD. I think it's what I want to try and do. So I put the SD card back in. Unmounted it. I also wonder if it had anything to do with the partition type. But more importantly, our music stopped. And I have no idea where the window went. Here it is. That was wonderful ambient music. I want to make sure I give attribution there. This is the wrong browser, but I'll put it in the right one. I was by Anam Ingrem, wonderful composer, I guess. I'm going to go back. Yeah, well, what else do they have? There is a chance that this entire video gets some sort of gets some sort of copyright. But you know, I'm sitting here on no. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have no idea what that is. Maybe I should just stop. Oh, where'd it go? What here? Let's do a deep ambient journey. Same artist, different track. This one's 2 hours. I'm happy to always mute it. I'm I'm gonna read your chat. I promise. I got distracted there. Um, I'm very happy to mute the music for everybody, but I definitely need it. This would be my own kernel, but by my own kernel, I am using. Here, hold on. Let's see. Show you the exploded FS. Had to mod his firmware to boot from rootfs from SD properly. Okay. That's not a bad idea. I'll just overwrite, or I'll, there's enough room. I think you have a good point there. I'll write his U image. I mean, I didn't do anything special to my kernel. I tried to use the stock. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I've already mounted these. Just make sure SDB1. Nope. SDB1. Maybe I didn't mount it. Hold on. I unmounted them. Going to mount dev SDB1. And what I'm going to do is... Sorry, I'm losing track of my windows here. That's broke down. Not mounted. Good. Straight out. Excuse me. Let's plug this in. Oh, I got to it before it booted all the way. Nice. Okay. Cool beans. So this time we're going to do dat bd. No. bd. Let's make sure that's what I... dot bd. Okay. Load it up. We got further than we did before. Be right back. Oh, well, hey, it worked. Ha ha! Oh, there's a password. Do you remember what the password is? Oh no. How would you know what the password is? Yeah, the stock system didn't have ext3 enabled. You think that's it? Either that or root. Yep. Okay. As we can all see here, we have this. Okay, so I was in my U image. Nice. Well then, while we're here, oh, did I even want to do that? No, see, I didn't have to do that. Captain Ron, are you a Tmux user? I'm a little out of practice with Tmux, but it's one of my most favorite things. It's an evolution of screen. Okay, so I'm going to do make, what is it? I'm going to show you the configuration script. I guess that's what I'm going to need from broke down, because I'm pretty sure that what he did was modify one of these def configs. Let's see, maybe it's just in here. I need to find out what the variable is on it. Ext vendor. Oh. I'm going to start. Oh, no. Hold on. I'm not going to start just changing things. Haha! I did say. I think I changed this one too. To not include drop bear. Just because it didn't have networking anyway. Used ultimate. Then mod D. Well, I think the differences. What were the differences between ultimate? Oh, well, I should do this. T31 ultimate. I mean, like, in reality, I should just do a delta. I just didn't know if there's anything up at the top that would come out at us. Yeah, I'm gonna do a diff. I will. That's a good idea. Nope. It's not in these configs. There's more configs. Also, hold on. I'm going to turn this off for a second. Oh. Sorry, I'm doing super secret stuff, logging into my other server. Okay. Well, I'm going to look to see in home teacup Docker. This is what he uploaded. I'm curious. So in theory, he uploaded this to me after he had figured out how to do this. So I'm curious if I go in here to Ngenic, I go into configs, T31, or oh, you know what? We'll look at that. You see all these are April 26 except for the May 4th one. T, and that happens to be ultimate. Okay, so tell you what. Oh crap. I because I rebooted, I think I lost my mounts. Stand by. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to diff it with the original. Oh, well, of course it's not going to be there. Set dash O VI. Spool. Yes. Okay. I am going to, on my Prism, I'm going to copy the ultimate def config to, is it spool 0, data 0? Yep. And we're gonna call that sorry, this is just logistics of getting them both in the same place. Obviously I could do it all sorts of messy ways, but I'm going to do it this way. T31 def config def config dot bd. Okay, and then again, this is a reason why you gotta exercise this stuff. So muscle memory is your memory map, right? Knowing how to solve these problems and just even navigate. All right, and then I'm gonna CP this T31 ultimate def config to mount what's my mount? Z spool. Yeah, did I do that right? I do believe I did. And then do home about. Yes, got them both in here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and diff T31 ultimate def config.bd and T31 def config. Well, there's a couple of diffs. Custom config file. That may be due to a version difference of like, but I wonder. Okay, let's just keep going. Hold on. Yeah, no, I did it. I mean, like, we may have been on a slightly different version of OpenIPC. Yeah, there's not I don't see an ext3 change. The only thing that I can think of is that technically, let's go look at the kernel, the T31 generic configs. T31 kernel. So let's go into the board. Well, obviously that's very... It may be all it really needs, but let's just go look. Home. Teacup. Oops. Okay, those are the same. But it's that, aha, you notice that there's a .old here? Sorry, we're in the potential broke down version. It didn't sound right. But let's look at, what's going to be our next, let's just delta those two. Div T31 generic config and T31 generic config.old. There's things about file systems, I feel like, and an ext4. Give me 1 second here. We'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there. I'm just gonna. So again, this is one of those things where we just copy one at a time. I need to make sure I write this down using broke downs. Okay, so yep, I'm gonna just take his whole generic config and copy it in. And again, all of this is us applying the scientific method, right? So we're just trying to understand and reproduce the results of others. So go in here, go to kernel. We're back to our local version of this. I'll make sure I'm in the same path. Board T31 kernel. Yep. Okay. And then I'm going to move this T31 generic config. So like this would apply to all of them in theory. T31 generic config dot 30513 stock. And then I'm gonna copy my what do I end up calling it? Z-spool. Oops. Z-spool T30. Yeah. T31 generic config to here. So now that generic config should be the same. Ah, there you are. It broke down. We're dissecting your handiwork in a good way to get my own build working. All right. So power off. We're gonna add. We're gonna. Sorry, guys. We're gonna have to recompile. And that's gonna take a little while. But this is the SD card I want. I think that's all I have to do. Set OVI. Make. think that's all I have to do. What did I do wrong? Oh. I'm lost my ability. List def configs. Oh, make list configs. Oh, I had to set the board. Did I ever do that, or did I just select it? How about I try? Is this what I do? I'm just going to do this. Since I modified all the config files, I should just be able to do the building.sh and pick the T31 light. I did snapshot the file system, so I can go back if I need to. This is going to take a while. Yeah, that makes sense. Is it so on the audio? It's still low, right? Maybe this is a good time to try and figure out if I can change that here. This is maybe a good opportunity. Huh. So it's at 0 dB. Curious. Now I've brought it up to 0.5. So I'm changing, I guess, the max that this audio right now. I have the advanced audio properties up, and I'm curious if here, I'm going to bring it up a whole dB. How does this? Yeah, see, that's the problem, Captain Ron, is the volume's maxed. And originally I wasn't sure how much the YouTubes were going to mix my audio for me, if you will, to bring up everything. Not a lot lower. It could be mic distance from the mic. Yeah, let me bring in my video. So, and this mic, I'll admit, I think that it's used to having processing done on it. So I brought the max up to, nope, see, it'll only go to 0 dB. We go back to advanced audio. In theory, I can turn on the monitor. Hold on. Monitor and output. Testing 1, 2. Okay, so I can hear myself now. I'm going to see about bringing this up. Test to 1, 2, 1, 2. This is 2.5 dB gain, and does that make a difference? Testing 1, 2. Yeah, so see, I have, I'm going to show you the, how do I show you OBS? I'm going to turn off my monitor first because there's a delay. Oops. Advanced audio properties. Turning my monitor off. Okay, we want to see if this actually even makes a difference. So I'm going to bring it up really high, okay? Like 12 dB. It's going to be insane. So in theory, the relative gain should be super duper high now. Is there any difference? Testing 1, 2. Okay, so is it better or is it blown out? And obviously I'll be coming back to this later. But this is at 12 dB, and I'm going to take a screenshot. Well, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, because in theory there could be an infinite mirror. We'll try it on scene 3. So scene 3 has nothing on it. Stand by. I'm going to do a window capture, and we're going to say OBS. Okay, that's not OBS, I know, but I need to change the window. See, now you can see the infinite window of OBS. And it's a pop-up dialog, so you're not, I don't think you're going to see it, but if I, yeah, no, I wish I could just share the region. So I have this at 12 plus 12 dB gain. I'm going to check on the comments here. Okay, so you're at 60% volume, and now it's comfortable. Now, of course, the audio mix, in theory, because it's at negative 23 dB for the desktop audio, is much lower. So I assume that you can't even hear the ambient music anymore. Oh. Captain Ron lost the stream. Oh. Not receiving enough video. Interesting. It got mad at me. It said error. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain a smooth streaming. But I don't know if that's a problem or not. All right. Also, of course, the live. Yeah, here we go. Okay. I guess that was the delay. Captain Ron, is it working again for you? Interesting. Are you able to pull it back up on desktop? YouTube? By the way, we're still compiling. Okay. It does say encoding overloaded occasionally. I just don't know. I'm going to open this widget that they're talking about. Okay. Doesn't do much for me. It's on stream health. And I mean, I'm seeing it back in my whatever stream monitor. Are you it's stalled again 100%. I like to be referred to. You can refer to me as anything, especially since we're doing the live chat. But I guess it's handy if you want. HANDY. Or Andy is another one. Lucy in chat. Curiosity, are you also on our Discord? Just not familiar with your username. Yeah, broke down. I'm not sure. Not that. Listen. Well, I guess he can't hear me. But it's not like we're doing anything very super interesting. I'm going to change my from balance to performance. See if you guys want to see my here. This is disconnect. Do nmon. This might be interesting while we're doing it, I guess. But as we're compiling, let's do a top. You know, I am running OBS on the same system as I'm compiling. Whoops. Oh, so, you know, I am asking a lot out of this machine at the moment. I'm curious if that's having an effect at all. Yep, you've reached the... You know, I mean, this is more exciting than, I guess, watching paint dry. But it is a little bit similar activity to what we're doing right now. We're just waiting to see if I can compile the kernel. You know, there's probably a caching that I should have tried. But essentially we took the configuration file for kernel for the general T31 kernel parameters and added all of Brokedown's changes. I think that's the only file we needed to change, but I'm not 100% sure. And he wasn't on the call, if you will. It wasn't on the stream while Captain Ron and I were going through and reverse engineering his work. Well, it's going to be really interesting to see what my audio is like now. I don't know if bringing up the music is a good idea. Can you even hear the background music now that I have this thing at plus 12 dB, the mic? Yeah, this is Nmon. I'm going to take off, let's see if I do a C, that's a lowercase c, and then I'm going to do an L. Is that going to work? No. Let's do a capital C. I thought that would give me over time. That's okay. So far, so good. Here, let me overload it again for you with kernel messages. You know, broke down if I... Oh, well, okay, you came back in just as it got interesting. UImage is too large. Missed it by that much. Now that's with your... I think that tells me that it took your changes. So that is the... If you're not up to speed... That's what you get for using the new build system. Let's see. Okay. So Lucy in chat, your suggestion is 8 dB over, as in plus 8 dB if I have it at 12 now. So the numbers are all bigger. Well, okay. I'll change it. Here, let me do that right now, because I know how to do that. I'll change the audio, and then we'll switch back, and we'll see what happens. We will change the advanced audio properties, and then instead of 12, We will do 8. See what happens. All right. Everybody adjust your volume. So now we're at 8 dB plus 8 dB on the mic input. How are we sounding? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Fully remove the noise. Fantastic. I think that's what... Okay, sounds fine. I'll find it in the recording. I don't know how much longer I'm going to stick around for this, but I do think the big deal broke down was that I hadn't enabled the ext3 stuff, and that's really what I wanted to be able to do. If I recall, that was in the BR chip and genic, and then we go into board, and we go into T31, and it's not the T31 config, is it? I think that just gives me the, yep, kernel. And now, I don't think that the numbers are something that I can just change in here, right? For max. The sensors and a bunch of other things. Okay. Here, maybe we can get your recommendations here. And actually, Brokedown and I were trying to figure out how to get a cross-stream us together, a collaboration video talking about Teacup in general at some point. Now, this is Mother's Day weekend, and so as soon as my wife is up, I am going to be her servant for the weekend. So it's even surprising to me that I've had this much time. It's been really nice. And it being almost 7 o'clock, it's going to happen soon, I'm sure, because the baby is going to be up soon. All right. You know what? I did use the light config. And if I recall, the light config is smaller memory, right? Is that my problem? Ah, yeah, be good at Discord VC. Lucy, are you asking about the file system? I guess I'm not quite following. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll take in. I've got my Discord up. Do you want to post it in Discord? Or is it just that last... Here, let me bring up my Discord. Is it this one? Yep. Cool. it should let me post something. Also, I wonder if I can make you a moderator. I mean, like, I don't, let's see, community moderation settings, add managing moderator. Broke down. I'm going to make you a moderator. Paste the channel URL of the user. Okay. Broke down. I'm going to, sorry, we're just like experimenting here, but in theory, I may have just made you a moderator. I'm really curious if you can post a link now. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and go get this. I have no idea how to do. Hey, it worked, didn't it? Oh, nice. Okay. I just gave you, I don't know. I don't think it's actually root privileges, but we'll see. It's okay, Captain Ron. I'll give them to you too. Just give me a second here. Get this repo. Where's my browser? There's a browser. Turn off Discord. I need more buttons. I want a plugin that follows my focus and brings up windows that I've already given access to. Okay, so you have teacup buildroot. That will, in theory, be a different directory name, so I'm just going to git clone it. Oh, didn't like that. That's good. Oh, oh, it's probably because of my key. Stand by. Oh, and this tmux is tmux is under root session. I'm a bad boy. Home projects. Build root working. Okay. Git clone. No, dude. We're using SSH. I will continue to push SSH any way I possibly can. And you know what else? I'm such a horrible person because, I mean, I don't need to be root to run buildroot. Well, the problem is with SSH, and I'm not going to let myself get to monologuing, but SSH is so underutilized, or more specifically, underestimated by those who use it or its technologies. And I know Brokedown knows it just fine. But particularly, I've seen a lot of developers that have developed bad habits because they didn't choose to learn how to use, for example, SSH, or more specifically, Git using SSH. And so then as soon as they can't get like a token or whatever, they just don't know what they're doing. Like, anyway. Yeah, I probably should. Okay, well, it's fair, right? So let's not do it that way. Let's be a user. I really didn't need to be root. My tmux session just happens to be root. And, you know, here. Do I even have any? Okay. Let's do it the right way. FTP. It's still in heavy use. All right. So, I'm in the teacup build system. I guess I should read me. Run make. It's all configurable for a recovery image. What I'm looking for is make menu config. Okay, cool. Well, this is my dream then, is what you're telling me. Kernel config with make Linux config. Okay. And if I just do make, okay, that's fair. Yes. No. Make. Let me go back to the README. I guess I'm looking for a dist config. Oh, do you mean that? You mean with like where am I? This is where I guess I get a little bit I guess make list def configs. Okay, hold on. I'll do a git pull. It's getting lost because the was trying to figure out the changes. Ah, okay. Was it blocked or was it in the ignore? Okay, so then at that point, it makes me feel a lot like you just want me to use the config you have. So basically, you want me to just do make. Yeah. Okay. So in theory, you already have these in here. For recovery on Flash. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and make it because we're here. I'm just going to hit make, see what happens. My target, well, I mean, the whole point we're here, right, is to just like repeat scientific method, repeat the success of others, right? Repeatability. And then through that repeatability, we do documentation. This is fantastic that you created this, this repo. You're definitely several steps ahead on wrapping your arms around us having a good build system, and I'm just super thankful for that. But for a flash recovery image, like I like that. I assume that you're here. I'll tell you what. Let me pause that. So broke down. If you're interested in us figuring out how to loop you in while I still have time, or at least even as an experiment, if you want me to loop in your voice, like via, I think Lucy gave a recommendation of using the voice chat function in Discord, or if you want to do some other way, feel free to DM me. Or if you're cool for right now and this is not what you were thinking of doing on a Saturday morning, I won't hold you on the spot or anything. But my question was, by for recovery on a flash, do you mean that it's meant to be put onto that flash chip so that you can boot into like a recovery mode, if you will? Yeah. Lucy, buildroot is, so it's somewhat, it looks like it's very mature. I mean, to get this much done, it's definitely, I would say, mature. The thing about buildroot is that obviously it's a series of make files, and so the like, I don't know, is there an O'Reilly book on it, or like the how tos are hard, or no, they're not hard. I've been finding some, right, but it's like bringing it into something that's usable, and grokking it so that it's so that we can use it to spin off our own stuff. It feels like it still requires an investment. Um, oh, cool. Broke down. You're up for anything. Uh, and I think that's what we're doing here for our group, right? If we were a corporation, like with a new board, if we were a company with a new board, whatever, we would be doing something similar. It'd be investing the time and intellect into grokking what the community's already done, figuring out how we can add to it, and then and make it support both our needs, but also how to contribute back. And I know that for us right now, we're starting at the ground level, most of us, on even understanding, or just like getting the hang of how to use the build. I've definitely done kernel, kernel compilation and distribution making in the long past. So this is kind of exciting for me to see how it's come forward. That makes sense. All right, so let's see if I can. I'm going to pause the music again. I don't even know if you guys can hear the music at this point. I'm going to pause the music and see if I can at least figure out how to get broke down in a dial in fashion. Um, because that seems like it would be super duper exciting to me. And even if we're not able to do it for very long, um, it'll be a good proof, right? You know, a good experiment to get going. I also need some more coffee. So, broke down. Um, Let me ask you this. Uh, I've never really done Discord chat, voice chat. Everybody, I'm sorry. I apologize that I'm not hip and cool. I've never done it. So, uh, um, I don't have a fear to try and then see how that goes in. That'd be really cool because then everybody in the Discord channel could be talking uh, over the stream. Or we could do something like I could send you a Google chat or a Google meet thing and then mix that in. Should really join the yeah, you should. Let me give you this because you'll find, and you get to find out all sorts of things like how how I don't have time for. I keep feeling bad because I don't have a lot of time for things. Do you need the link? You need the Discord link? So there's a lot in there. I'll send you this link. This is the Discord. I should be like just automatically pushing that every once in a while. And broke down if you're up for anything, then let's try it. Here, let's do it. I understand that this is let me try Google first. How about that? I'm going to send you a Google Meet link and see if uh, if that can work or if we get to catch. And I'll tell you what. You know what? I'm just going to be all ham radio about this. I'm actually going to put it in the chat. This is going to be scary. I'm going to turn off my video in there. Oh no. Yeah. No, this is going to be scary. Oh, let's see. Easy way in Discord, just go to DMs. Is that what we should do? Okay. We'll do that first. We'll do a wild meeting here in a minute or another time. Let's try the direct messages. Let me make sure my audio settings are set up correctly. I'm going to go to my Discord and I'll do a video call. I'll just do a voice call to start. Let's see if that works. I'm going to disable my streamer mode. I'm now calling you. Probably going to have to bring up my desktop audio. Hello. Are we connected? Oh, you're coming out the wrong speaker. Stand by. Stand by 1 second. You're coming out the wrong audio. Oh my. And the input device, we really want to be my Razer headset. And the output device, we want to be the Razer. All right, you want to give me a little, you want to say something?
Testing, testing.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now, because
That
the
works.
the desktop audio thing, I feel like you're going to be mixed way down. So I'm going to bring it up, and hopefully it's not going to be um, a problem. In the
Sounds
chat,
good.
yeah, and I apologize. Here, uh, go ahead and introduce yourself, broke down, and while I figure out how to adjust the audio.
Sure. Yeah. So I go by broke down. I'm a primarily software developer, but I do dabble in embedded a little bit, mostly like Arduino ESP32 type stuff, and have been doing various software and hardware type hacking projects for quite a while, and jumped on this one because it looked pretty interesting.
Awesome.
And I think we share a lot of the same goals for what we're trying to get out of these devices.
I agree. I'm just paying attention to everything all at once.
Yeah.
I bet you got to walk away from the stream this time. And I'm so super excited. Now some of your background is in Linux, like systems development and Linux administration, that sort of thing. You do consulting. Is that in your day job?
Yeah, I do some consulting. I do primarily, since I went independent, I primarily do web related projects, but my background is definitely in uh, Unix and Linux, particularly uh, not to date everybody here, but I was a sysadmin in the '90s, and so messing with uh, messing with things like devices running on MIPS processors is kind of nostalgic for me, having done systems administration on old SGIs and of course Suns and HPs and everything else that was around at the time. But since the mid 2000s, so almost entirely uh, Linux is where I've been.
Awesome. Well, and I uh, I appreciate it. I'm trying to figure out if Captain Ron says the audio is fine. Okay, so it's, fine's not great, but we'll get through it. I'm excited that we're able to kind of mix this in, because in reality, right, this whole project has been super exciting. Um, I am I'm not an expert, right, in this, but what I am, like, so similar to you is like I have this background where I have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, um, and uh, none of us have to be like the expert if we all come together, right? And that's kind of that joy of open source in general. And I think that's what got me really excited is that I just started making like basically you know how they say you dress for the job that you want, not the one that you have. So I just kind of put out there some of these videos in my interest areas, and then I can't believe how quickly this whole thing caught on. Like basically within a month, right? We had interest, enough traction to interest, a board, and then moving through. So like I didn't actually get into this as a to get to be a YouTuber. I think it would be fun, and I think it'd be great because I've been an independent consultant before. I've been self-employed myself uh, for a total of about 10 years. And I mean, that would be really cool for me to be able to get back to. But more importantly, I'm just really excited to see. So I'm a little bit younger than you. I started my professional career around like 98, 97. But I went full head into Unix from the beginning, SGI, Solaris machines, and learning Perl and C. And the difference, and I was going to ask you this, the difference between what we would, I don't even remember if we called it open source. I think we did call it open source, but the
Well, it was
landscape
free
is so
software
different,
for
right?
a
Yeah, it's
long
free
time.
software at the time. Go ahead.
Yeah.
The landscape has just changed so much, and I feel like we're in an age of abundance now.
Yeah, there's definitely a level of that. The movement really kind of took off. It used to be in the 90s when you'd get onto a Sonos, Solaris, or IRIX or what have you box, and you'd be stuck with the crappy userland tools that they came with, and then somebody would have installed the GNU stuff in opt, and like that was so nice to have a nice userland. And then Linux came along, and that was the default. That's what came with it, and kind of spoiled everybody. And I think people just kind of grabbed onto that and wanted more nicer, better tools on all their systems. And I think that was maybe a big part of why people kept grabbing onto it, and expanding the system and growing the software and just making it into a more comfortable, more full experience.
Totally. Sorry, is good. Captain Ron is giving me feedback about the audio on you being hot. Um, I promise we'll figure
Well,
out how to
thank you.
make this more like a podcast because I think it's so much more interesting, and that's the point, right? So, is community is being able to bring people in, and I really appreciate us experimenting. And the thing about it is that you have a whole lifestyle YouTube channel where you have at least twice as many, if not more, subscribers. Particularly because I think you nailed the shorts, and you and your wife may be more interesting than me in the first place. Uh, but tell us a little bit about how you started getting your voice out there and you started broadcasting as well.
Yeah, so my primary YouTube channel is more, I guess, like a lifestyle thing, but we are schoolies, is the technical term for us. Essentially, we're uh, people who bought a retired school bus and turned it into a home. And so we do the digital nomad thing and travel around the United States, kind of snowbirding right now between being in the South in the winter and the North in the summer, trying to follow the nice weather as much as possible. But my YouTube channel for that started out with tips on finding a bus to build, building the bus, uh, dealing with things on the road, and turned into adding in like reviews of equipment, stuff like that, which that area is going to be picking up here pretty soon. And recently, my wife has started doing cooking videos. There's one I'm editing right now. We should have it posted later today, of different cooking related things that you can do given the limited space and generally, smaller appliances and such that you have in a schooling environment. So that's my primary YouTube channel, but I also, as you know, started the WL Tech blog channel recently, which is going to be more tech related stuff. I've got one video on the Ingenic based camera already, and I've got two more that I'm editing to get them put together on that topic. And uh, I've got scripts I've written for two videos beyond that for just more general tech subjects. So uh, hopefully that channel works out.
There we go. Yeah, I hope so. I look forward to seeing it. I know personally that when I was trying to uh, both like learn the whole tool chain, right, to be able to produce a video and try and get it out, it was definitely. I mean, regardless of the technical challenges that I was trying to solve, I was actually trying to talk about technology. There was the whole tool chain that I had to learn basically from scratch. Um, and the tool chain I went with was Kden Live, So I had a Panasonic camera, and then I also experimented using my phone. I had I'm still playing around with microphones, but I've got some Diddy lapel mics. Obviously, I'm not using it right now, but and then Kden Live for video editing. I liked what's the not open, but it's by Black Magic.
Da Vinci.
DaVinci, yeah, I like DaVinci, and I experimented with that, especially for work, some things. But I didn't like that. Well, number one, the machine that I had at the time didn't have a GPU, so I couldn't run it. But also, it wasn't open source, right? Um,
Right.
and I really want to try to use open source stuff. Uh, and and so I eventually got a better machine, which I'm running Linux on, and it's a and it does have an NVIDIA card in it. I can run DaVinci Resolve, but I got to this point where I liked Kden Live so well. Um, but out of curiosity, because I think your tool chain is very different, especially based on your lifestyle, and I think that's really interesting. Tell us a little bit about your tool chain.
Yeah, so there's a couple of pieces to it. Obviously, being in a smaller space environment, I don't have room for having, my own basement data center, which used to be a thing for me. Instead of that, what I have for a device that isn't my primary computing device is a Raspberry Pi 4 uh, with a SSD storage on it. So it's decent for being a Raspberry Pi. Um, and I do a lot of my stuff that needs an actual Linux environment. I'll do it on there, cross compiling things like that. I have a number of cloud servers that I use in my business, so I can take advantage of those if I have network connectivity, which I do most of the time. And my primary computing device, my laptop, I went the way of the devil and picked up a MacBook Air like a year and a half ago, and that was based almost entirely on the being able to live with it aspect of having a device that had enough power yet enough of the creature features that I was interested in, but could still run that, if not all, the majority of the software that I'm used to. And of course, you can run Docker on it, so you can run in a actual Linux userland at least. So I'm able to do basically all of my open source work on the laptop until it comes to things like cross compiling, where I'll do that on the Raspberry Pi.
Mm-hmm.
But I have used Linux primarily for my entire career, I would say, since it was viable in the mid '90s, and getting this Mac has been kind of a blessing and a curse. I haven't had a GPU crash in a year and a half, so that's something. But at the same time, uh, there's a lot of things that they don't support in the OS directly, and you're not able to easily support, and just some weirdness. Like I'm still used to the window manager, and you can't customize certain things. And like I'm making it work. I'm getting my work done. I'm getting my hobbies done. But I'm really hoping that another manufacturer comes out with a laptop that's comparable in on the hardware side, and the creature comforts, the performance, not getting hot when I'm rendering videos, not having a fan, stuff like that. Battery life on it is ridiculous, and the screen is one of the things. Like, you can't buy a ThinkPad with a screen that's good. They just sell it to you. They just don't make it. Uh, and the screen is a big deal for me, especially for something when it's my primary device. And I do use it in an environment with, I've got a 32-foot bus and 28 feet of it on both sides as windows. So you have to be able to see it in sunlight.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so a cheap TN screen or TFT or whatever is gonna be not gonna be doing the job. Uh, Also, I like USB-C charging, and
Yeah, USB-C. That
this
I feel
is
like that's like a topic we've slipped into kind of a podcast style, but and
mm,
the compile did fail. I want to get back to it, but
oh,
and also I probably am gonna have to drop here soon. Uh, 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 what was I saying? The USB-C is like a whole topic. It's it's amazing, right? I mean, like
well, it is amazing, but it can also be crap.
that's
About
right.
half of my devices that are USB-C charging won't charge on an intelligent USB charger.
Hmm.
So I went out of my way. Obviously, we care a little more about how we power our devices than most people would, and so we have electric toothbrushes that charge from USB-C, but they'll only charge from a dumb charger, like if you're plugged into a adapter into a USB-A port. And I've got a number of devices that are like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I run into that too. I'm constantly on my little battery packs. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's two ports. There's the USB A and USB C, and like one of them is intelligent and the other one is not. And I'm constantly having to carry, like to try out different cables or which side is going to work depending, right? So there's still definitely some standardization issues there. Um,
Yeah, my power outlets that I installed in the bus for my 110 AC house power, I bought intelligent power outlets that have a USB-A and a USB-C, and the USB-C will charge all of the devices that understand smart power except for my laptop. And so I have a USB-C smart charger plugged into a wall outlet that has a USB-C port on it in order to charge my laptop. And my wife's laptop will charge just fine on any of the ports. My phone's will all charge just fine on any of the ports. Just this one device.
y-
So
you mean the Apple
entire
device?
right, yeah.
The Apple device is different from all the other
The
devices.
the
It's
Apple
more
device is
picky.
different.
It's more
It's
pretentious.
thinking different.
I have my work laptop is actually like the work issued laptop is a MacBook. They asked me when I started what I wanted, and
Mm,
they like which kind of developer laptop do you want? And I said, well, I'm not sure how much work I'm because I'm a solution architect, right? So I said, I don't know. What are all the other what are a lot of the other developers using? And my preferred operating system is Linux. They said that most of them choose the MacBook, and it's been about a decade since I worked on a MacBook, and I never was able to be truly productive. And the only reason that I had one is actually I had a contract. My consulting company that I had ended up scoring a contract to transcode a bunch of VHS training videos for a bank. And so my partner and I used it as an excuse to go down to the Apple store, and and drop a couple $1,000s on Mac equipment because we're like, well, we got to try that out. And I even bought the like OS 10 guide for Unix geeks, right? And like really kind of explored it and thought this is really cool. OS 10 is really cool because you know you can kind of dial it in theory, right? The theory is that you can dial it from 0 to 11 on Unix and ease of use and all of that sort of thing. But especially fast forward, I feel like that the nerdy Unix part has is more and more restricted. Things like brew are nice, but it's always like a third option. And so I get to this point where I'm like, well, even with WSL, right, with Windows. With Windows, you can be on Windows and basically using Linux. But on a Mac, there's still this kind of friction, if you will, right? If you're doing stuff at that level.
Yeah, and I had kind of a similar experience where my web development company got to the point where Macs were when OS 10 started really getting popular, uh, and Safari was really coming on the scene. We had to start doing usability testing on uh, websites and applications for that were viewed on Macs. And it was different enough. You couldn't just rely on, well, it looks fine in, Firefox, and it looks fine in Internet Explorer, which were, the only two that mattered at the time. You also needed to separately test it in Safari. And so I went down to the Apple Store and bought a Mac Mini, an iPad, and then I bought an iPod Touch because I didn't need an iPhone, and it seemed close enough for my purposes. And actually, that was probably the nicest device of the bunch that I bought was the little iPad.
I
But
I had one of
uh,
those. I I had one of the first kind of the first gen iPad and iPod touches, and it's kind of like the ThinkPad, what like T60 ish time frame. There's these devices that really nailed it on the whole experience, and I feel like we just slowly kind of got away from it. But again, that's subjective, right? Um,
right.
but anyway, I'm gonna circle us back around real quick. I don't know if you can see the stream or if even I can share my screen, but we did get a build error.
We're looking at Discord right now,
We're
so
looking at Discord. Okay, so I'm going to take off
yeah, so I
Discord.
don't see your.
I'm going to take off Discord. I'm going to even make it a little bit easier and take off my screen. Um,
I'm also potentially many seconds behind live.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we gotta figure out. Well, that's what I was telling Captain Ron is one of the uses of ngrok that I'd love to use is in this exact scenario. I don't know if you use tmux already, but it would make it super easy for you to come in and we would both be on the same tmux session, and we'd get all the fidelity, right? Um,
Right.
so, uh, but let's discuss this. See if you've run into it before. I haven't even read the whole message. Um,
So it looks like it's looking for something in a static location. So uh, I'm assuming, yeah, that's what it is. If you do a make menu config from there,
okay,
like I said, I'm a few seconds
that's
behind,
all
but if
right.
you go into make menu config and go to kernel options, one of the options will be for the location of your
Uh huh.
custom kernel config file.
Okay, I see it.
And if you change that path, so uh,
Absolute.
instead of being a full path, an absolute path, you make it relative to where build root's installed. So just start with board.
Okay. Yeah. Let me see if I can get it.
This will be the first time this is built outside of my Docker container.
That's great. It worked well, and
There's a few options that can go on here.
yeah, and I know I was not a cool kid, right? I didn't immediately absorb it into Docker. Um, but I thought, I'll keep trying it this way. All
Well,
right.
I thought about instead of publishing the entire repo, just publishing a Docker file. But
Yeah, it makes sense.
we went this way instead.
Yeah, let's see if it works, and if it doesn't, I mean, like I can also, we can go towards the Docker thing, the Docker path. All right. So now I've got that set. You think that's about all we need?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it should be.
So let's see, exit, and then yes, I'm going to save the configuration. Now here's a question: do I just do make again, or do I need to do a
Yes,
clean?
I'll just do make.
Okay.
If you do clean, it will rebuild the entire tool chain as well. I'm not sure how, I don't recall how the OpenIPC was set up as far as if it would use your host packages instead of building the entire tool chain, but I've got this set to build the entire tool chain, so
Cool.
it should be as repeatable as possible. Like I should be able to run this on my Raspberry Pi and get a successful build.
I am super excited. I think I've sent you notes that I commented before that I don't have any Raspberry Pis because I have so many Raspberry Pi 3s. Or sorry, Raspberry Pi 4s,
Right.
right? So because I have too many Raspberry Pi 3s, I need to figure out.
Well, the 4 was such a bump up.
Yeah.
Like the I have a 3, I have that Pi top device which I use as my thing I plug my hacking projects into instead of plugging it into a device that matters. Uh, and it's like a full laptop built around a Raspberry Pi 3. And it's like the hardware is really cool. It's a really nice device, and I, for the most part, enjoy using it. But the Raspberry Pi 3 feels like such a step down compared to the 4 for performance. Uh, it's kind of painful to use, but uh, I definitely do enjoy having it, and I do use it for sure. But the 4 is such a huge boost. I've got the 8 GB version of the 4, and I've got all kinds of stuff running on that for managing my power system in the bus uh, and file services, things like that.
Awesome. Yeah. No, and that's what I want to. I would like to be able to try it. I like low end. Well, see, we say low end, right? But it's like you don't always need high end hard, like the latest thing to accomplish what you need. In ham radio,
Uh,
right, we have a theory, or there's kind of this, only use as much power as you need to get the signal across.
right. Yeah, and you say low end, but it's still a quad core
Yeah, I know,
64
right?
bit ARM CPU with 8 gigs of memory and an SSD.
That's well, and that was what I was excited about with this. The T31 was that even just as like a general CPU, I was like, well, I know it's only one core, but like, it's still like a 1 GHz machine, right? And then so my memory
Yeah,
takes me
it's
back to
1.5 on the
yeah, it's
X.
1.5 with uh, you know, it's a little bit less RAM, right? Like as far as how history has gone as for pairing processors with RAM. But my mind rolls back to all of the things that I did on machines a fraction of that, right? And and
Right.
and, and kind of go, well, we could do some cool stuff. Okay, so this build finished, and I'm assuming that it's going to be in my output. Um,
Yeah,
Output
I'll put in
images,
that images.
and we
And it
have
should be creating, so you'll have the U image and you'll have a root file system that's tarred and also a root file system in a JFFS2.
uh-huh. Oh,
That's it.
let's see. Lucy in chat is asking, what was the camera you picked up that had this board in it again? And you know what? Actually, this is great because Broke Down being on, he actually was able to find the same board that I randomly found. And
Well, I didn't find it. Captain Ron found it, and I just bought the same one. But
okay, okay. But
for
you were and
sure,
you were able to get your hands on it.
yes. And the frustrating thing was, you did your first video where you had the drive free, and it's got a box where you're looking at the right box when you see it. The problem is what's inside could be anything. And so I bought one of those from eBay that was clearly the identical box to the one that you opened on your channel. And I got it home, and it was the cheapest, worthless junk webcam And I have footage of that in my next video that I'm putting together. But it was just the worst piece of junk webcam you've ever seen. And Captain Ron found a device that seems to have the identical board to yours that you can get on Amazon for like 15 bucks. And it's the WANS View 106 is the model.
That's awesome. Yeah, I started feeling really bad. In fact, that's one of the reasons I started thinking that we needed to make our own board. Uh, uh, I had people joining the Discord, making comments, right, asking and buying, and not everybody. So, like, our audience is full spectrum of folks in different places of life, in different countries, with different kinds of import export costs and all sorts of things, right? And I was feeling really bad that I found this random camera. Actually, my wife found it, honestly. I wasn't even the one that picked it up. Found this random camera. We paid $1 for it. It was very interesting. And then fast forward, people are trying to get their hands on these. Um, you could generally guarantee what chipset was in an IP camera if you bought like a retail IP camera, like I forgot the brand. Remember what's the brand? Oh, Waze. There was a Waze camera, right? Um, that we knew had a chipset. But people are spending their hard-earned money on a crapshoot to hope that they, after shipping and everything else, that they had the right board to reverse engineer, right? And it's like, well, if there
Right.
is this much interest in people wanting to hack it, like how bad could it be for at least, even if it was a premium that we had to pay, eventually that that somebody could at least be guaranteed a certain set of capabilities for the chip. And then we found the dev board, but if you want a dev board from ISSI, it's a commercial package that is, I'm sure, very nice, but carries a $400 price tag. And to my understanding, this board that we've created and that we're working on is the first community-based development board for this line of processors. Is that also your understanding?
Yeah, and obviously we've been doing a lot of looking around and research on anything we can find using this chip just to get as much information about it as possible. And they're outside of being used in actual commercial devices, there's basically nothing from the community side of it. I mean, a lot of them are being hacked by people. It is fairly popular for OpenIPC
Mm-hmm.
to get devices based on this chip, but beyond that, I I don't really see anything. And in some ways, that's like we're breaking new ground. In other ways, it's kind of frustrating because it would be nice if there was more information out there that we could use.
I agree.
But for sure, the teacup board, like I'm super impressed that not only that it exists, but that it works and that it exists so quickly.
Yeah,
That's something where the community really paid off because that's not a project I could have done on my own. I couldn't have built that board.
I was super impressed. That like just inspired me to no end. Um, and going back to I remember I fought hard for open source in corporate and government, areas for so many years, and there were so many things that I couldn't open source or that we couldn't contribute back, and that it was a struggle, or even just being allowed to use something that was labeled as open source. Um, and so to come full circle 25 years later, and it is the like first strategy, right? Like
Right.
generally
It's
it's
dominant.
open source first. Go ahead.
I was just saying it's dominant
Yeah.
out there now.
And so when somebody says, when when I have a younger developer come to me, right, and kind of, I don't know, give like a, well, I'm not sure if we can really change this, or if we can get this adopted, or whatever, right? And like take something like Golang, right? Um,
Mm.
that's relatively new, or you could take Rust or something, or just like a concept, right, that we're trying to push in the organization. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, dude, it might take a while, but if it's a really good idea, it'll get the traction, because look at Linux. Like it it took a lot of people a lot of effort, but it fundamentally shift. I mean, I remember all the way into the early aughts where it was still a question as to whether Linux was an appropriate commercial operating system.
Right.
Much less
Yeah.
MySQL, right? Is another good example.
I remember the first production device that I was able to deploy on Linux in a company. It was actually a NNTP server, and we went with Linux because they had stable, in quotes, SMP support, and the other platforms supported by the NNTP software that we were running didn't.
Uh huh.
So it was between Linux. I want to say it was 1.3 at the time, so it was still development kernel uh, trees, but I want to say it was 1.3 versus BSDI was what we were running
Oh
previously.
yeah.
It was like a dual Pentium 133 server with Adaptec 9 gig SCSI drives, a whole bunch of them, uh, running a news server, and that was such a huge success that within a year, Linux was the default of what we would install. And this was a shop that had uh, really it was bigger than they should have bought, but they had a Sun uh, Enterprise 3500. I want to say maybe it was a 3000 generation before that, and it was a 60+ thousand dollar server. This was in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
The we'll say like 95 ish. So that's a lot of money for one box, and eventually it got replaced. That was kind of the story going forward from there in my career of coming in, and old school proprietary Unix systems come out and Linux systems go in to replace them. Like uh, the nostalgic thing with the Nginx chip is literally the this is actually more powerful and has more resources other than disk
Yeah.
storage, but
I,
otherwise it's a bigger box than I used to run production web servers and such on during the dot-com bubble,
yeah.
when things were just like money was flooding in from everywhere. And one shop I worked at had their entire data center was SGI, which what a bad platform for web servers, but
Yeah, I
they
think
had
it was
more
like
money than sense.
150. I think what the Indy 2, that was the one that I got familiar with. The Indigo, no, the Indigo, was like 150 or 160 megahertz, right?
Yeah, it was R4000, like one. I want to say they went up to 200 megahertz, but yeah, for sure that was what we had. And after a year, like there were so many of these purple pizza boxes, is what I called them. There were so many of them in this data center, and for perspective, we were replacing them with servers that like we were building our own servers in house, and we were building with AMD K6 2s, and we ended up with so many of these leftover purple pizza boxes. We made a table out of one, where we just had stacks of them for the legs. It
That's
was, it was
great.
probably it was probably 40 of these purple pizza boxes.
I'm debating
But
on I'm gonna write this next file system. Or so I got my U image over. Um, Actually, because we built this and I already had an ext3 file system, the kernel was really the problem that we ran into before. I should I'm gonna just see if it boots.
yeah, and let me just state for the record, this build root system that I put together, I know it compiles. I don't know if it works.
Okay. Well, I
So
already have, in
uh,
theory, a working like a ext3 file system on here, and I
I
just
would nuke it and just make a new one and untar on top of it. Is what I would
okay.
do.
That's what I would. Okay, yeah, that's what I was
For
wondering.
repeatability's sake, that's what I would do. But
Okay,
uh,
okay, we'll
we
do that.
did
We'll do that.
compared to the open IPC build root, we're using much newer versions of everything, and I had to do some patching in the that old Linux kernel to allow it to even compile with newer GCCs. Uh, and I got it, excuse me, I got it up to GCC 10. I could not get it to build with GCC 11, but we were previously building it with 5. So
Do you think
quite a
I
bit
should
newer.
do it as just an ext3?
Yes,
Okay,
that's what I would do.
you feel like that'll work?
I mean, you should have ext4 support. I have yet to test it, but why don't you do it ext4? Because
Nope.
YOLO.
I already started.
All right.
I
Well,
was
either
just,
way,
and that takes a few minutes.
shouldn't take long.
I accidentally it's 30. It's the remainder of 32 gigabytes, so it's not too
Oh.
long. It's just not cooking show.
Right. This is where you cut the video and go into 8x
Well,
fast
and
forward.
or in this case, um, talk about something more. Talk about something interesting with a friend, right? So let's see. Let's
Right.
catch up. Let's catch up on the chat. Um, while we're waiting for this to finish. Lucy in chat has been super active. Maybe the only person. Let's see how many people are even on. Um, we've got, I think,
So Lucy, you mentioned Spark in there. That was a big area for me for a number of years, not just uh, like pre-Solaris, even the SunOS days. Uh, I spent a lot of time working on Sun equipment, and for a while, I actually had like my basement data center was all Sun. I had a built out to the max Sun E450 in my basement. With
oh,
at one point, I had a couple of E250s sitting next to it. My desktop workstation for quite a while was a Sun Ultra 2 workstation that had the first generation of the UltraSpark processors that actually had a bug in 64-bit mode where Sun reverted them to run in 32-bit mode because there was a super easy root exploit in the chip.
is that
So
right?
they reverted you to 32-bit Solaris to run on those chips. And I did quite a bit of work at the time in my spare time, just uh, like 64-bit was still relatively new at the time in the open source world, and a lot of software out there didn't support it. So I would spend a good amount of time just trying to, like, I had Linux on. I was running Linux Spark 64 because obviously that's
Yeah.
more fun than Solaris. But a lot of stuff didn't support that 64-bit because they're making assumptions about uh, size of types, uh, and spent a lot of time porting things up from there.
I wanted to bring up, I guess, two things since we're on the SGI topic. Um, so number one, when I uh, when I was nearing the end of high school, uh, I wanted to have access to my own. I wanted a personal, right. I had some money saved up, but I knew that like my parents were gonna, as a graduation gift, I was gonna get like I was gonna get $2,000 to buy like a computer for college or whatever. Okay,
Mm.
and very generous. But that was part of that was going to be part of my graduation present, and so I knew that because my sister was 2 years older than me and had something similar. She bought a Fujitsu life book, right? But she also got a very different degree. I think she initially started out in speech pathology. Anyway,
Mm.
so I, on the other hand, I went, okay, well that's great. This was 2 years before, right? I said, but I'm going to need at least $10,000 to get what I want. Right, and because at the time, from a Linux standpoint, I mean, yeah, sure, I was getting it to work on 386s and 486s, and I'd even gotten like a Cyrix 686, right? But I mean, it was still far from what I could use. It was far from what I was already using, and this kind of goes back into some of my other history. I won't go into too much, but through the military and the Dodds schools, I had access to Solaris and SGI machines and BSD, and we were running web servers and email. And at one point, I was the administrator of a lot of those resources. And anyway, so I knew I was going to have to spend 10 grand, right? 2 years later, I spent $1,000 on the monitor and like $1,200 on the on the VA on a VA Linux box, right? Because I wanted it to be turnkey, right? That was my ideas. I wanted to be able to buy a Unix machine, right? I bought a
Right.
VA Linux box. I still have it today. Um, and it was 500 megahertz. Uh, and the monitor was a Sony Trilitron 21-inch, right? And it was fantastic. And then I was able to use the rest of the money for other things that a high school graduate might like to use it for. Uh,
Right.
but anyway, so and then I was also going to say a while back, actually, this is what I have up on the screen, and then I'll get back to the ext3 file system, decompressing that. Uh, I don't know how to say this. Mashek Systems out of
Mm.
Knoxville, Tennessee. This guy emailed me. He may be on our Discord server. I can't remember. But his name is Doug, and that's who will answer sales at Mashek. And he refurbishes SGI systems. And he also made the
Nice.
comment, I wonder if we could get IRIX to work on this.
I'm gonna say probably not, just
Probably.
because we don't have the source code for it. Like if it doesn't work,
Yeah,
it won't work.
right. And I don't
Uh,
know about emulation for SGI hosts. I just feel like that's a uh, far away. Um, oh, the other interesting tidbit about me personally is so there was also a year in the early aughts where I had a buddy that went to the University of Utah, and they were getting rid of a lot of their SGI systems and basically giving away boxes of software of the operating system. And I said, "Oh, send that to me." And I made about $32,000 on eBay that year selling
nice.
IRIX
That's
software.
great.
I wish I would have kept it.
One
Now I
one
might be able to get even more. But
one of my favorite things. Not quite that good, obviously, but uh, a number of years back when I was still doing the Sun equipment, um, I happened to find myself in a town for some reason I was traveling through, and I saw a sign that there was a computer store going out of business, and they were having an auction for everything left in the building, and I stopped in, and uh, it was just your normal, kind of mom and pop computer shop that just had random, Windows box type equipment in there, and on a shelf they had a Sun monitor,
Uh-huh.
and so I immediately honed in on that one and saw it had the 13W3 connector on it, which really didn't get used for anything else. Like, this monitor would have been no good to 99.999% of people, and there were a couple of other people looking at it because it was a big monitor, uh, a big, nice looking, clean, fairly new looking monitor. And I pointed that out audibly to the friend that was with me, at a volume that everyone else could hear. Oh, this has a different connector on it. This isn't going to work with regular computers. So I ended up getting it for $5.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And that was my first monitor that supported 1600 by 1200.
Yeah, that's great. So I've
It
written,
totally matched my Ultra 2.
I wrote the file system out to the card,
Mhm.
and okay, before I pull it out, let's just make sure because I'm paying attention to two things at a time. SDB1, I think I already have the correct U image on there. MD5 sum mount SDB1 U image, and let's MD5 sum. I'm sure eventually somebody's going to call me out about MD5 sum not being the best, but
MD5 is good enough for most uses.
we we've gotten a lot of mileage out of MD5 sum, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with it for now. Okay, so looks like we're good. I'm gonna unmount that, um, and I already ran a sync. I think you were correct in cautioning me about that. Um, okay, so on it was a couple of years later, but I speaking of proprietary cables and monitors, I had an Apple monitor for like one of the Performa series, and CRT. I don't remember if we got it secondhand or whatever, but like we got some good money out of it, and put it in the van, and was going to the to the UPS store to be able to get it packed up. Um, I get out, and one of my friends looks at me and he says, I think you need to look at this. I'm not sure if we can fix it. And the cable, right, had been slammed in the door and
Oh,
then torn off as we drove down the highway. That little so that end was just ripped off, and I'm like, I, like getting on my what was it? We didn't have a smartphone at the time, right? But I had the Palm Pilot wireless service, the packet-based Palm Pilot wireless service,
yeah.
and I sent an email and was like, "Do you even still want this?" And yeah, no, they were upset because anyway. So adventures in that. Let me bring up um, my teacup. I think we're about ready to do this. I need a
One
second.
thing I should mention with this image, since it doesn't have any of the camera stuff in there, and we don't have any of the supporting libraries for those other hardware functions. This is like I mentioned, this is kind of a recovery image to let you access the SD card in the network. But that does allow you to uh, modify U-boot so that you get your entire memory instead of giving half of it away for nothing.
Right. Okay. Cool. So I think my
It looks like
T.
you're booting.
No, yeah. Well, that's off the FC. The I didn't hit Control C soon enough.
Okay.
And it seems to be my TTL adapter seems to be having issues, and I'm kind of wondering. Normally, I power the teacup board off of a. Let's see. Yeah, see now it's better. I'm having to unplug and plug back in my TTL adapter. Let me
That's
hit
not good.
reboot and do a Control C. Okay.
Yeah, Lucy mentioned Illumos in the chat. I was lucky enough to mess with uh, Open Indiana, which I believe Illumos is eventually based on uh, for a little bit.
Oh, is that
And
right? I'm not familiar.
yeah, it was so they open sourced Solaris at one point.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so Open Indiana was that project, and then Illumos. Uh, I believe the timeline was they unopen sourced Solaris for all intents and purposes. It was no longer open source going forward, and the Illumos folks kind of ran with what they had at the time. Oh,
Interesting.
that's not good.
Yeah. Also, well, we do have the GFS FFS thing, but then, well, to be fair, it looks a lot like, okay, either it barfed or so there's.
I'm pretty sure that it barfed because I had a similar looking uh, dump on mine previously, and I want to say I was able to fix it with a change in the kernel config, but I don't remember off the top of my head what that change was. Like I said, this image has not booted.
Okay. Yeah, no,
This is
that's
the
cool.
first time for that image. So now that we're at that point of like getting the build system itself working, we can tweak on the kernel config to get it right. The patch from Ngenic for the kernel against 3.10.14 is like 79 megabytes worth of patch.
Is that
And
right?
so they change a lot. And it does not appear to be all just Ngenic. It looks like it was maybe a development tree from I forget the name of the group that was doing all the ARM embedded stuff, but they had their own tree. But a lot of the Ngenic options, you need the right combination of things selected in order to get a kernel compile where you're not missing a function that something else was depending on.
I did notice
Uh,
that there was an incredible amount of patches in the OpenIPC directory
yeah,
for
and
this.
the kernel that this downloaded, I actually pre-patched, and I had to make a few modifications in the code to get it to build. So I just have the entire source tree uploaded to a Git repo.
Cool.
So you're
Well,
getting the whole thing pre-patched. But
well, I'll tell you what.
obviously, this config is
I think I'm going to go ahead and spin down. But this is again, this is a fine stopping point because just because something didn't go all the way, and I guess this was part of what I was trying to communicate in general with the YouTube videos, is part of hacking is failure. It's the 10,000 hours that you end up having to put into something. And
right.
trying to communicate to folks that, you know, really doing these things. And I mean, we're not even doing anything related to like security and where there's obscurity, right? Like we're talking about open source for the most part, open source stuff, right? Like, some of the aspects of the processor aren't so open. But just like banging your head on the wall, right, to get through, and then trying one tool and then trying another tool and trying another method, etc. It's all part of the process, and it's a journey, not a 20-minute video. So
Yeah, there's definitely been a ton of hours that went into getting this far.
that's right.
Uh, and again, I want to put my appreciation out there for the development that went into the teacup board, and also to Captain Ron specifically for hand assembling one with components smaller than I could hand assemble. That's for sure.
Totally.
And sending it to me like that was a huge deal getting access to hardware, especially as quickly as it happened, and it worked.
Right? Oh yeah. I was super impressed. Yes, totally. I the community, and back to me saying I'm not necessarily the expert, right? It's been so amazing. We used technology, right, like YouTube, etc., to like put a periscope out there, attracted interest, um, and then people like Bogdan and AD Beta in the very beginning helping get that board up so quickly. Um, and Captain Ron was in there towards at the very beginning as well, providing feedback. I was figuring out how to organize it, but then the technical accomplishment of the actual board config, the uh, I don't braveness. I just want to like the hero of Captain Ron. As soon as Bogdan said, "I think this board is done," he ordered them and the components, and was the lead out, the trailblazer, and his ability to figure out how to get these boards working out the door. And then I think PCBWay is doing a great job, but that's a professional manufacturing house on the other side of the world, and we would not be where we are this quickly today without those folks. I'm just absolutely amazed, and
Yeah, Captain
inspired.
Ron really embraces the. We should rename him to Captain YOLO
Yes,
because he jumps right in.
I agree. Well, I think I'm going to call it here for now. And what I'll probably, if I'm able to get back around to this weekend, um, I'll probably pick back up on where I was and then figure out how to merge it into what you were doing. Because I think I was close. I just didn't have ext3 support. So I'm pretty sure that if I just wrote it as the read-only file system, that it probably would have worked. It was the OpenIPC build without, is basically stripped down version of that. You are definitely several steps ahead of me
Yeah,
on
you
it.
should be able to use that JFFS2 file system with the kernel from the OpenIPC build system
Yeah,
if you wanted to try that.
yeah. I think I will, just like again, it reaffirms my understanding, because there's so many moving parts and it's moving so quickly. And by the way, to your credit, right? You're moving quickly. In figuring out how to do a build, and just so that everybody has an idea, if anybody actually ever is able to get to this point. But hey, for you, Lucy, next time, Lucy, maybe we could bring you in. I didn't anticipate I'd have 3 spare hours today. Um, uh, my primary objectives, which uh, I posted yesterday in the contribs. Here, where's my Discord? Oh, good. Somebody commented on it. Um, but there's a GitHub project if you haven't seen it. And I am trying to kind of wrangle in some of these threads. I don't want anybody to feel like we have PMO overhead. too much of it. But here, let me position right here. So the idea, right? This is my next kind of targets now that I know that I have working hardware, um, and previous code that I wrote was able to run, is to build that minimal image. That's really what we're looking for, right? So they can rinse, repeat that. And then I have this list of uh, SDK samples, from Ngenic, and I want to kind of exercise those, right? Because we have this new board. Let's get things like, or at least, it's one of the directions I'm going, to get those basic samples working, and then maybe a few others, right? Uh, so that we understand maybe some of those, not only the capabilities, like how do we write to the GPIO pins, right? How do we get an LCD working? How do we just do an LED blink, right? There's sound processing, there's audio in and out that's brought out to the headers. Or for example, the H.264 encoding that's baked into the chip, right? The accelerator. They have examples for that. I'd like to understand those more because the Majestic tool is still not open source, and I think that's bundled in with the camera. Like basically, we need a chain that we can use as much, of the open source components as possible, but also just understanding maybe somebody doesn't want a camera, maybe they want to do, but they still want to do H.264 encoding, right?
Right. That was a use case that I had, but it was the chip also has H.265 encoding,
That's right.
which is way more interesting to me than 264 because I can do that fairly quickly already. But 265 is something that's still very CPU intensive, and if we could have I see it kind of like a USB device you can plug in to do offload encoding where you're sending, previous codec video or
Ooh.
raw video or what have you and get back 265, and that'd
Yeah.
be great.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah, just like to take an offload. And for something, especially if you're using like a Raspberry Pi, I mean, it's got some of its own dedicated stuff too. But like I think that's really cool too. Uh, the main reason that I wanted to get into it was, again, us looking at this as like a USB gadget learning device, and being able to get a frame buffer out to somebody on like a Chromebook, right? And so being able to do either like an H.264 or 5, sorry, H.265, being able to get a stream out either over like USB video, right? Like the UVA, right?
UVC.
UVC. Yeah, getting that over UVC, and then you could share it as your webcam, or even via a web page, right? If we did like a web page or something. And I also have done work with the guacamole project. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but it's an embedded HTML5 essentially remote desktop client, right? And if we could get something kind of like that, where you just pull up in your browser and you have the whole thing, right? Then I think that would be advantageous. Anyway.
Yeah, the negative side to that is that those cores, those blocks on the chip, are going to require a block of memory allocated to them to use,
Mm-hmm.
which it doesn't have a ton of memory to begin with, and right now it's allocating 50% of it to those blocks.
Is that where the
And we don't.
reserved goes?
That's where the reserve goes. So if you take that off, your camera doesn't work anymore and such.
Gotcha.
But they mention in their PDF document that they have a spreadsheet for calculating how much memory you need to reserve based on the functions that you want to have. But that spreadsheet appears to not exist. So when we get in touch with Ngenic, whenever that actually happens,
Yeah.
I want to get that added to the list. Where is the spreadsheet that
That's
you
right.
mentioned in your PDF? Because I would like to keep as much of the memory as possible for the user to be able to run applications, especially when you're talking about uh, on the camera where you're splitting 64 megabytes in half. Uh,
Yeah,
you really don't have a ton of space for your own applications to run there if you actually need to give half of it to those video codecs in the camera sensor or wherever else they go.
I agree. I did run into something similar, by the way, on a project with Synaptics in
Mm.
the Android open source project. In the kernel, there's some SPI drivers for one of their touch devices, and you go into the kernel driver, and they reference this diagnostic register, right? Like set of registers to get raw diagnostic data, and they reference the data sheet, right? The document with a Synaptics ID, ID on it, um, as to what the documentation is for those registers, and uh, that's I could not find it, and even going through Synaptics, they had issues finding this spec. But there was a part of what I was doing was reproducing some results uh, from a um, from a researcher in a university, and they had at some point tinkered with this enough, right, to like get an idea, and that was part of it. Is we wrote this application that read those values and then plotted them out into a grid, this capacitance values, plotting them out into the grid, and then we're attempting to apply some AI models to it. But my part of that was just like trying to exercise that kernel module and then bring it up into user space. And it's like this document's there, or it existed at some point. I don't think they
Right.
made it up, but it's gone. So
On a related note, do you have a point in time in mind as to when you want to actually approach Ingenic?
yeah, so I do, and we have that contact, and I have him on LinkedIn now. Um, I think it's imminent because, like, maybe let's get him the boot thing. Like I guess we're getting the boot thing working, but technically we can boot, right? We've got a board, we can boot, and we have a good amount of traction. And it was one of the reasons I wanted to get the GitHub project working, or things sorted out, is so that we could say, hey, listen, we have a direction. So we have hardware, we have a direction, and obviously there's already traction in the open IPC side. Uh, like I feel like we're quite here, right? And again, thanks to Captain Ron for getting us boards out, right? Because we can prove that we have something that's functional.
Yeah, I don't think he's in the chat right now, but
Yeah,
he's missing all this praise.
yeah,
Uh,
he could catch it back.
I,
Well,
I believe the kernel issue with booting, like I said, it looks identical to an issue that I had several revisions ago. So I'm confident that's able to be
oh
sorted
yeah,
out.
I know that we can sort
Although,
it out because we've done other boots, right? Like it's all us just being able to, if you will, own it, right? Like um, not taking just what others have created, right? So there's like oh, you're taking a binary that somebody created. Okay, so you like know nothing about that without a lot of work.
right?
And then there's taking the source, which and throwing that on there, but you don't necessarily know how that works until you
Yeah,
start
I will
interrogating it, right?
mention, right? But like you mentioned, Mother's Day weekend, you're going to be fairly busy this weekend. I am also probably going to be fairly busy this weekend. We're looking at, we've been stationary for about 6 weeks now, and we're approaching lifting the anchor and
Ah,
moving to another location within uh, 10 days, 14 days from now. So I've got some non teacup projects I need to button up around here as well. and the weekend is my time to work on those.
That makes sense. Well, everyone, and thank you so much, Brooke, down for joining me. It's been fantastic getting to talk to you for the first time, everybody. Everything else has just been on. I've talked to Captain Ron on the phone once, but this has been fantastic to get to talk to you and for us to just kind of be figuring all of this stuff out. So thank you
It's
so
been a
much.
pleasure.
And you have a wonderful weekend, and for everybody else, right? This is handy, and I'll let you sign. I'll let you sign off. Broke down. We'll figure out how to do this sign off thing. But I'm handy. This has been the Hacker Homestead, and happy hacking.
Yep, and we'll see you in the next stream.